So our next panel actually is a really fascinating subject, and something that is really important to me personally, which is how do we motivate, engage all of our students? How do we make sure that everyone is included and everyone gets what they need? And so we've called this panel Making Space for All Students to Thrive. And our moderator for this panel is Dr. Erin Yosai, who is Associate Professor of Professional Practice and Director of the Center for Psychoeducational Services and Social Psychology doctoral program in the Department of Educational Psychology at KU. And so I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Yosai and let you moderate here. And in the meantime, I'll figure out this PowerPoint problem.
Thank you, Sherry. Hi, everybody. Happy Friday afternoon. I'm Erin Yosai, and a lot of those words were just saying that I'm a trainer in school psychology at KU. I run the training clinic, and this is my area of interest, is inclusivity, mental health, and wellness for all students at all tiers of instruction or intervention, or however we may do that. So when they asked me to come be here today, I was really excited to step in. So this panel, though, is not so much about me as it is about these speakers we have today to share with you some of their experiences and what has worked for them during their careers or in their lives in the public school. So we're going to start off with Karen, and Mrs. Karen Stohlman Henderson. She has been a mathematics and principles of engineering teacher at Blue Valley Northwest High School in Overland Park, Kansas. With over 30 years as an educator and certifications in math and physics and computer sciences in grades 5 through 12. She also holds a national board certification and is a master teacher for Project Lead the Way. Karen received her bachelor's and master's in ed from KU and a master's in mathematics from the University of Northern Colorado, which Karen was where I came to KU from. I worked there for 3 years, so a little connection there. But she's going to talk to you today about the survival model. So we would love to hear more from you, Karen, and we'll let her take on over.
I was lucky to be asked to be a part of this panel, and everybody in this room, if we're all educators, probably has some belief on this. And so as soon as kind of the topic came up, which was the difference between surviving and thriving, it kind of led me to kind of one of my guilty pleasures, and that is to watch the show Naked and Afraid. And it is a show on the Discovery Channel. And just kind of give you the setup for the show, because I used to really make fun of it before I started watching it. So typically, two people who have never met before, a man and a woman, are dropped in the middle of somewhere where it's hard to survive, and they're naked, and they meet for the first time, and they have, on a standard challenge, 21 days in which they need to survive, and they are given one tool of their choice, like a machete or a fire starter or a net, something like that. And then they're also each given that, they're given a map, kind of a rough map of how they're going to, where they need to be picked up 21 days later. And they're given a pot to boil water in so that they can, just survive. So what you see here is actually Excel, which is on right now. My family's super excited. And this is Excel, an extra long challenge where the best of the survivalists are on this in the Amazon for up to 60 days. So the real survivalists are about the difference in just surviving. They want to thrive, because the fact is, some people on the 21-day challenge just know that if they find water and a heat source and a little bit of shelter and lay really still for 21 days, that they can just survive. They won't be dead by the time they have to get out of there. But these extreme survivalists who are naked in the Amazon with people they didn't know, who are in there, are their goal is to really thrive. So like, that's really what I want to talk about. And that is taking that kid who is stealth, who is kind of just invisible, just in your room, checking off, if I lay really still for 21 days, I will not die before they come and pick me up mentality. And kind of look at how do we make those people thrive. So there are really 3 necessities that the survivalists on this show figure out. So they figure out that within the first day, they need to create a shelter of some sort, that they need to find definitely water source, ultimately food, and they need to find some sort of firewood or an ability to make fire if they didn't choose a fire starter, so that they can stay warm at night, because they're always plunked down somewhere that's super unpleasant. So these are kind of like the basics that you need not only to survive, but ultimately, if you get those under control, then you can actually thrive. Say like, I could live in the Amazon forever without any clothes. Little note on this, like my family and I believe that it should go shelter, food, water, fire, and then the next one should be shoes. Like people should make shoes. Walking barefoot in places is hard. So I didn't put that on here. So let's talk about what it means to be the shelter component. So the shelter in our world is our classroom, right? And like the shelter that those people put together, the little A-frame huts that they grab all these twigs and wood and build up, the shelter is a safe space, right? It's a safe space to learn. It's a space where you are protected from judgment based on your ability, your ethnicity, your gender, your sexual orientation, your beliefs, your world beliefs, your kind of religious beliefs, your political beliefs. So it's a place where you as a learner should feel safe. So a little bit about myself, I have 2 kiddos. I have a daughter who's 21 and she's actually on summer break. She's at KU. She just finished her junior year, mechanical engineering. And then I have a son who is 18. Elijah has a rare chromosome disorder. So he is in our special ed program in Blue Valley, which is great because we have a great special ed program. And so I always look at this feeling of safety, not only from the view of my typical super social, pretty bright 21-year-old, how she went through classrooms, but my 18-year-old who struggles in a social setting, doesn't have the innate understanding of all the social cues, who is definitely different than other folks. And so what does it mean to be safe for each of those people? So what I used to think before I was the mother of a special needs child was that I just needed to make sure that everybody was safe, in that I was protecting people from what other people were saying or doing. But now that I have Elijah in my world, I know that that safety is bigger than that. Not only do I need the kids to feel protected, but I also need to make them feel included. One of the things that we find happens to Elijah a lot is that he becomes invisible. People aren't mean to him. They know that's wrong. Like, we raise people well enough to know that making fun of the kid with a disability is a bad thing to do. Like, that's not cool at all, because he has a disability that's overt enough that everybody be like, hey, don't pick on that kid, that's mean. But the question's also, is he actually included? Is he not invisible? Is he asked to be a part of that space? So in your classroom, your shelter, will you make sure that you are aware of not only kind of the protecting, everybody has their safe space, but is everybody included? Does everybody have someone that would notice they weren't there that day if they were gone? Kind of that look around. Does everybody have somebody in that room who cares that they're there, that they're contributing? So after the shelter, kind of your classroom is put in there. What's the nourishment that we have in our world? And that's our content, right? We need to feed our students with our knowledge. People innately like to learn. like people innately like to eat, right? But there is food that is just about surviving. And then there is delicious food, food that we want to participate in, right? The stuff that we love, our favorites. It's delicious, it's desirable. We have to do that same thing with our content. Our content's that nutrition, right? We need to package that so that it looks good. You hear on all the cooking shows that we eat with our eyes first, right? So we need to make sure we are packaging our content in a way where a kid walks in and looks at it and it's like, oh yeah, I want to do that, right? So how do you package your content so that it looks delicious, right? How do I package calculus so that it looks delicious, right? What about that is going to make it interesting and attainable? In order for kids to go from surviving, checking off the yes, I did that, to wanting to be there, wanting to know it, wanting to see it, wanting to apply it, that's the thrive component, right? How do we package that? Make sure it's got the right icing on it, right? Make sure it's the right size for them, all of those things. And then finally, the fire, the warmth that we need. The thing that adds fire to our classroom is our energy and our attention. We just need to set it on fire. Why is it that you love teaching what you're teaching? I personally do Nerdle every night, Wordle every night. Like, I love a puzzle, right? That's what math is. That's what engineering is. It's a giant puzzle. Like, proudly, I'm excited when I finish the Nerdle at night, when I finish the Wordle at night, right? I love that. And so I need the kids to know that, like, in a geek kind of way. Like, when I finish that calculus problem or I finish that trust calculation, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm amazing. How cool is it that we just did that? And I have to keep that fire going because I do love this. And there are a few kids in the room that also will love it, but everybody is attracted to what somebody else loves. Why do you love working with the kids in general? What do you love about working with students, right? I'm currently teaching some adults right now. I'm teaching some engineering teachers, Project Lead the Way right now. And you know what I love about adolescents? Their resilience. Because adolescents are way more resilient than adults. We are not very resilient. We are super worried about looking like we don't know what we're doing. What do I love about adolescents? Sometimes what I love about them is their resilience. Sometimes that makes me crazy in my classroom, but ultimately that's the part I love about them. And what is it that I can appreciate about every kid, right? I have to admit that there are some kiddos that I have to think, what about you do I love? You've got a mom, you've got a dad, you've got people who love you. This is sometimes like your own children when you're like, why is it that I love you? Because I got to dig deep to find it. Sometimes you got to go to a band concert to see what that kid loves. Sometimes you got to see that kid on a soccer field or in a play, right? You got to be like, that's it. That's what I love about that kid. That kid loves that thing. Maybe they're not bringing that to my room, but I need to remember that they have some characteristic that is lovable. And you need to be able to write that down. At the end of the semester, I try and write a note to every one of my kids and say, thank you for. And I have to, some kids, it's easy. Like, there's pages I could write about those kids. And some kids, you got to dig. But I think it's our job. Our fire, our job is to make sure that we do that. So that's kind of my naked and afraid version of what we need to do. And understanding, folks, time is the difference in all of those. Being able to do that takes time, and just finding the way to find that in our classroom to do that. That's what I'm looking for. Understanding that it does take time to set that environment, to have the content, have icing on it, and to make sure I see every kid for what they're worth. But that's really a differential, and you guys all know that as teachers already.
I did not see any questions in the chat. Let's just take a couple minutes to open it up. Does anybody have any questions for Karen or thoughts about the naked and afraid model of thinking about our classroom factors?
I love that model. Yes, it really grabs your attention.
I agree. I think it's a really great metaphor for thinking about ways that, sometimes the jargony words of climate or hierarchy of needs or any of like culture of the classroom don't really make it as tangible as, thinking about, am I lighting a fire? Am I feeding them? And are they surviving or are they thriving? So I really appreciated that metaphor, and I think it went a long way.
Right, and think about the kid who, for some kids, it may really feel just that terrifying.
If there are no other comments or questions for Karen, we'll go ahead. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's a great question. So Karen, we have a question in the chat that asks, how can we build resilience in ourselves to match our learners' is resilience?
So I think it's really interesting because I'm working with folks who are teachers and I'm training them. And it's one thing I say to them when I start the training is, one of the things you're going to do this in the 2-week training is you're going to get to put on a student hat. I try to make sure that I am continually going to sessions or things where I am learning. And maybe it's legit, like I'm going to a new class at the gym. Like I'm going to go to the step class. I've never done that before. And I'm going to feel what it's like to not know what's going on and see everyone else around me is doing all the moves and I don't know. But I think putting yourself back in the student's shoes occasionally, make sure you're doing that and remembering what it's like to be a learner is so powerful. I really like to be a learner. I kind of had to stop getting degrees. We made a decision that until all of our children had degrees, I had to stop going to college. And so I really love being a learner. And so now I have to do it in different ways, like conferences and things like this. But I think one of the things that you can do to grab that thing that students have is go get in their shoes every once in a while, and remember what it's like to be in the student mode. I had one of my participants say, the next time one of my kids says to me, I worked all night on this. And she said, and I always think, whatever, you worked all night. She's like, legit, I'm telling you, I worked all night on this problem. And she's like, that kid's gonna say it to me and I'm gonna be like, yeah, I've been there. So I think just making sure that you put yourself in the learner mode every once in a while helps you remember what that's like.
Yeah. I do a little bit of work in this area too, and I'm especially passionate about learning together. So I'm all about how do we model and teach resilience skills too for those students who might not have some of the learning resilience for students. How can we learn these things together? Is there, 3 to 5 minutes that we can take during the day to model square breathing or belly breaths or making a gratitude list of the things that you're thankful for today, or thinking about all the thinking about a to-do list and then say, what's one thing that I really can just check off right now? So modeling some of those resilience skills that really kind of focus around kind of positive reappraisal, positive refocusing, goal setting, growth mindset. All of those build resilience and all of those can be modeled. And if we're not good at them, isn't that humanizing, right? If we mess up every once in a while in front of the classroom and we're like, I'm not being very mindful today, right? We need to take a moment. So I think in addition to what Karen offered, I would say that let's challenge ourselves to build it together. If we don't have it, let's build it together and do it together and figure it out together. Any other thoughts or questions or comments? Okay. Karen, thank you so much for your time and your presentation. I want to take a moment as we transition to introduce Mr. Eugene Miles Jr. He is an EIA teacher at Turner High School in Kansas City, Kansas. During Eugene's junior year of high school, he decided he wanted to follow his mentor, Michael Chisholm, and become a teacher and a coach. So after many years of school, Eugene finally realized his dream in the winter of 2008, and he walked across the stage from ESU as a teacher. Although there were many struggles along his journey, Eugene never gave up. Even after experiencing financial hardships, retaking classes, and almost missing his student teaching experience. Eugene is now entering into year 10 of teaching and year 14 of coaching. He used his lived experiences, trials, and celebrations to move forward and motivate those who walk into his classroom, pass him in the hallway, or cross him on the track. So welcome, Eugene. Please take it away.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me very well. This is my first panel and presentation other than doing one for AVID. So I hope I do well, and I hope you invite me back at some point in the future, and I can contribute in many ways or any shape possible to helping others understand and help me understand what I do in the classroom, and also how to motivate my students and those who I see on a daily basis. So I took a little different approach to this. The title I know was how to make students help, or making space for students to thrive. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous right now, but I took a different approach to this because I thought when I was doing this and I was reading what the qualifications were and what Dr. Bessel had sent to me, it kind of clicked in my mind to do it this way. And so my title is Making Space for Students to be Built Different. And that's a phrase that students are using nowadays, or have been using. We're just built different, all right? And so to explain this, I'm gonna go back into my bio, and in my bio, there are bolded printed words that are gonna be used as slides to help me convey the message of how students are built different. And I'll go back and read it again with those emphasis on those emphasized words, and then explain why they are important in my bio. During my junior in high school, I decided I wanted to follow my mentor, Michael Chisholm, who just recently, as of yesterday, we buried him 6 years ago. And a heart attack took his life, but he was a man that helped me to be who I am, all right? He basically gave me life in high school. I was a nobody freshman who, out of a high school of about 1,500 students. I went in not knowing anything. I went in trying to figure out who I was, who I wanted to be. My dad wanted me to be a football player, so I tried football. It didn't work out very well. My coach told me that I was fast and he wanted me to run track, and introduced me to Michael Chisholm. And from that point on, my life has been nothing short of a miracle. So fast forward in high school, my junior year, I knew without a shadow of a doubt, I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. There was no point in any other career other than that, other than trying to figure out what I wanted to teach and what I wanted to coach. But I knew who I wanted to be and who I wanted to emulate, and that was Michael Chisholm. He was a man that was, and later on, it wasn't until his junior year in high school as well that he decided to stop being a thug and take school seriously. And he actually went to school on a track scholarship. And I was the only one in my graduating class that year that went to school on a track scholarship as well. So for me to become a teacher and a coach meant that I was going to emulate and become and do the best that I can be to be Michael Chisholm. After many years of school, many years, I graduated high school in 1997. And as you can see in the bio, I didn't graduate with my teaching degree until 2008. But during that time period, I graduated with my associates in 2000 and my bachelor's in arts and English and a minor in coaching in 2003 from Port State University. And I finally realized my dream in the winter of 2008, which was a struggle because I had to go back and retake classes. I had to go back and build my GPA back up again to where I can get into my classes and then be able to do the things that I need to do to become a student teacher. I walked across the stage from Port State University as a teacher, but there was a hiring freeze and I was not able to teach until 2013. But I never gave up, although I had many struggles, which is what I try to teach my students today, including my AVID students. Even after experiencing hardships, and all those other things, I am now in my 10th year teaching and my 14th year coaching. I use my lived experiences, my trials and tribulations to move forward and to motivate those who walk into my classroom, those who pass me in the hallway, and those who cross my path on the track. And I want to try to make this as interactive as possible. If we go to the next slide, it focuses on why we are, the first phrase, I never give up. Slide 3, please. We never give up equals built different. And each one of these phrases, if you could in the chat, add to this as you understand how I'm going to explain it. Growing up, if you were any child of the 70s, 80s, or 90s, you know some of these phrases. We are put some dirt on it when you got hurt. We are put some vapor rub on your chest and the bottom of your feet and put your socks on and under your nose. We are rub some dirt on it. We are take a salt tablet. We are go grab a duct tape from a toolbox generation. We are give me that paper so I can put it in the radiator that seals off these cracks. All right. We are hand me your mama's pantyhose so I can hold these tubes together. We are walk it off. We are, if you do it right the first time, you won't have to do it again the second time. We are honor your parents. We are you working hard or hardly working? We are, how many times did I have to tell you to do this? This is our generation. This is who we are. We were built different. We were built to be resilient. We were built to be tough. We were built to be a stitch in time saves 9. We were built to persevere. We were built to overcome. We were built different. No matter what situation we find ourselves in, we persevere. We never give up, and we find a way. Slide 4, please. But the generation that we teach, we always give up equals built different. And this is what I hear my son and my students tell me on a daily basis. That's too much work. This generation we're living in today are a generation of students who are not as resilient or don't have the grit or the willpower or the fortitude to persevere through their emotional, their social, their economic, or even whatever background or whatever situation that they may be in, whether it be losing a loved one, finding out that their boyfriend or girlfriend just dumped them on Twitter or Snapchat or TikTok or whatever platform that they use. This generation we are teaching today, they are built different. They're built to give up and not to try. They're built to give in and not persevere. No matter what situation they find themselves in, they do not persevere. They would much rather give up, and they rarely find a way out. But we as teachers, we're built different. We're built to help them and to give them the tools that they need to become different. And it's okay for them to be built different. It's okay for them to have the struggles. It's okay for them to be in this position. But what we cannot allow them to do is stay in those positions. And this is why I think I became a teacher, because I can see the hurt, the pain, and see the things that these students are going through and then resonate with them and then give them ways out and help them to cope with the situations that they're going through and then be able to persevere, be able to have grit, be able to go through and to be able to find a way out. And when I see this in my classroom, it just turns something on inside of me that makes me want to try harder to reach them. Slide 5, please, as I go through mine. And through my bio, you've noticed I've talked about lived experiences. My lived experiences equals my teachable moments. I have to stop, relate, and listen to my students. And these are all real life things that have happened. And I find that when I stop teaching and when I listen and I relate to my students, and then I can help them and then give them the tools that they need, they're more willing to stay engaged, stay focused, find a way out, problem solve, troubleshoot. And so living through poverty, and this is my testimony, living through poverty for me equals you don't have to stay in your situation. You can change your outcome. And that came about through a talk when I heard a student say, I hate my life. And I had to stop the class and I had to stop the lesson. I'm like, why do you hate your life? And this is not something that I do on a daily basis, but when I hear statements like this, it brings about, okay, we need to stop this. All right. And I go through the student like, why do you say that? What makes you hate your life? What about your life do you hate? And I always have to go back in and I try to give them my story. I try to tell them, growing up in Dallas, Texas, life was hard for me. Growing up in a household where I had little to nothing was hard for me, but I did not allow my situation or what I was going through become my outcome. And I allowed them to see that you can change the way you do things, how you think about things, how you experience things, how you see things, how things motivate you or don't motivate you, just by changing the fact that you can do better later on. This does not have to be, nothing in the world says that where you are now is where you have to be at in the future. And then I also had change or a chance. Someone gave me a chance. I'm giving you a chance to be great no matter the outcome. And this came about when a student asked me, why don't you give out extra credit? And I said, I'm giving you a chance to be better. Extra credit just means I have to make more work for myself and you to do when I'm giving you an opportunity to do all the work and be consistent and be not perfect, but be resilient in what you do. Take an opportunity, give somebody a chance. This is my motto. I give a student a chance on a daily basis. How many times have I given you a chance to turn in that assignment? Why do you need extra credit when you can take that assignment and still turn it in without penalty points and still get maximum points? And I've heard somebody tell me that you talk very well. People weren't expecting a young Black male from the inner city to be so articulate or to speak with a Southern twang. And I had my student says, I can't believe you came from Texas. And I was like, what does that mean? And then they explained to me that this is what I know, this is what I understand, this is how I feel. And it turned into a bigger class discussion about it doesn't matter where you come from, where you've been, what you may perceive, what you may think, what you may assume may not always be true. And these are all teachable moments that I've had in my classroom. And this is one that just happened just recently to me as of last week. Are you an athlete? Did you play football in college? Are you a coach? What do you teach? And then, wow. And then my answers were, yes, I am an athlete. No, I did not play football in college. No, I am not just a coach. I'm a teacher with a passion to coach. And I'm an English teacher. And then, yep. And this was at a grad party when I was talking to one of my grad students, and a family member was surprised that I was an English teacher, was taken back that I was any way, shape, or form involved in the classroom. And this would also be used as a teachable moment to tell my students that if that situation comes up, that it doesn't matter what people think or what they assume about you or how they perceive you to be, you can be different from what everybody else thinks you are. I was growing up, I was always, well, when I became a teacher, they always, first thing they asked me was, did you play football? You look kind of athletic, kind of built. You stay in the weight room, you do this, you do this. And then they're surprised when I'm telling them that I'm an English teacher. And then they're surprised I'm telling them that I'm a coach. And then they're surprised when I tell them that I'm an English teacher, because they always want a coach to be a history teacher and not anything other than that specific content, or a PE teacher, or a weight room teacher, or something other than English or math or science. So these are all things that I've lived through that I try to relate to my students and teach them that you can persevere, you can overcome. Slide number 6, please, and thank you. There you go, thank you. My trials and my tribulations equal my students' celebrations. We are stronger together. And these are all, the students' names have been absent from this to protect them. But these are all things that I've seen and experienced and talked to and seen that my students, even though they're built different, it doesn't make them any different. Student A was not a great student academically, but turned things around and graduated. And this student, particular student, I saw one day working and thanked me for not giving up on them, for not letting up, for not stopping, for not caring, for not giving them what they needed. And although the student barely passed my class, they still thanked me for not giving up on them. And as of today, I think this student has gotten married, has graduated college, and has a successful life. I'm not sure what the career that she said she was going to choose to do, but this is what I've lived through. Student B has not passed one class both his freshman and his sophomore year. Blown away by how his life turned around, should be around, I'm sorry, after his junior year, as well as the career he obtained after college. And this student stands out as one of my most memorable students because we've had a talk that reverberated around, if you don't have all your academics or all your core classes before the end of your sophomore year, it is mathematically impossible for you to graduate on time. And he didn't pass one class freshman and sophomore year. But finally, after many and many talks, his junior year, he finally turned it around. And he ended up graduating high school. He ended up going off to college. He ended up graduating. I think he ended up working in some firm. I'm not sure if it's a law firm or some company, and he had a high-ranking job. But this is what we mean when we talk about our students thriving, not giving up, seeing them to persevere. So hopefully they can have grit. Student C was a 17-year-old freshman from Mississippi who was held back 3 years in 8th grade. He moved to Kansas, was in my freshman English class, and with help, he thrived and graduated. He ran track for me his last 2 years, played football his last 2 years, got his grades up to where he can graduate high school, and he is now working and has his own apartment. Student D kept using foul language that caused trauma and harm to another student who left their school because of bullying. And this has just happened this last semester. The student finally realized after an open conversation with the entire classroom about how we would not cause harm and trauma to other students and how we would not use our words as weapons to make fun of, criticize, and or belittle. And after some personal talks with the student, he finally stopped his verbal assault. And from that point on, became a better student to where he almost passed. He'll have to go to summer school, but he almost passed. He thrived because of that connection. And then his last and final slide focuses on not only how we are all built different, but how we are all the future. Move forward and motivate equals student successes. If we or teachers don't stop to look at the roses that come into our gardens, then we're missing the mark. Ultimately, we will not understand how the rose came to be, nor will we realize what that rose had to endure to get to this point. When we, teachers, just stop to smell that rose for only a brief moment in time, it will not leave a lasting impact on both parties. But when we stop teaching to inquire about the unique qualities and surroundings that rose has been in and through, it is a true investment that will last well past the life of that single rose and ours. This is the impact that we, teachers, have the opportunity to make when we invest, when we think, when we consider, when we learn, not just from our curriculum, but for our students. And this is what I try to do on a daily basis, is understand my students, their journey, where they want to go, how they're going to get there. And then ultimately it's my job to help them get there. And I do thank you for your time and your patience.
Thank you, Eugene. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I think what I was reflecting on a little bit from these presentations was really the yearning for us to bring kind of this humanity and connection back in with our students, maybe more of a mentorship aspect, maybe more of the focus on those softer skills rather than maybe just the 3 R's, you know. And so maybe what being resilient means is that we model being human without any guilt or shame, and take those moments to come out and you know, draw out a teachable moment, have a classroom discussion, model how to, you know, have an uncomfortable discussion in the classroom, because even if you're nervous doing it, they're still learning. There are so much from the courage that you have to take that moment and to draw out the conversation, to invest in the conversation, and to have those teachable moments. So I think that was the idea, is that the stop, relate, and listen that you were talking about is maybe one of the most powerful things that we do as educators. Any other thoughts? Oh, we have some thoughts in the chat here. Yeah, Bell Hooks has some amazing work out in this area. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Takeaways from today? Anybody want to share any takeaways that they're wrapping up today with before happy hour? Because we know teachers like, we all like happy hour too, right, on Fridays. So, nothing else.
Erin, I think that one of the things that kind of becomes a management issue is sometimes we get into survival mode,
Oh yeah.
this thriving mode, and just having other educators in your world to let you know, to remind you to achieve that next level. I think it's really easy to get in our classroom and really isolate ourselves, just not for the wrong reasons, but just because we have so much to do. But certainly something that makes, I think, me thrive as a teacher and helps me do things for kids, helps me put the icing on top of that lesson, is having other people help me with those lessons and other people invest in that, and just getting excited about, you know, a lesson that maybe you've done for a while, but now that you're working with someone else, helping you like pep that up, you know, like what's the spice you need on it now? And you know, you've been doing this for a really long time. How do you adjust it for the kid we have now, that, you know, like that Eugene was talking about? So making sure that we, you know, I make sure that somebody in the classroom knows that somebody's gone. I say to them, hey, when I'm looking for attendance, I say, hey, who's gone today? You know, somebody needs to be able to account for every person. And same thing, like, you know, when you go to school, is there somebody else, some other adult that's like, hey, are they there? Are they okay? We talked about that in the earlier session today, but I think that all helps us move from that survival mode to that thriving piece that we're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think that I wrote down what toll does existential threat take on our academic resilience, right? We have gone through a ton of existential threat in the last 2 years, and we've also faced immense pressures in the schools that we never thought we've had to face before. So sometimes survival mode is the best that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, being human and modeling that, and modeling that some days are survival mode, but you can still treat people with respect and kindness, and saying, you know what, today's a survival mode day, everyone. Like, I, you know, we can't joke about this right now because I'm not there, or I have a shorter temper or anything. I think that, you know, we need to respect that we have, especially all of you that have been in the schools, have taken on a huge burden in the past 2 years. And that affects our ability to be resilient. So it sounds like Karen and Eugene are saying, you know, find your team, find your people, find your network of other teachers, rely on them, you know, bounce ideas off of them. And maybe by coming together and working together, we can survive a little more, just by feeding off of each other and collaborating. I agree, Shelley. I love that statement. People and relationships are foundational. Yeah. And Gina, I agree. I agree. I feel like that could be a whole nother panel conversation for a whole nother day, is how do we function within our school and communities and communicate and work together as a team with our communities, our parents, our other admin, our other support staff like school psychs, who are also very stressed out with all testing demands right now. But yeah, we can't do it all on our own. So how do we lean on each other and really help each other be more resilient, and to model that resilience into our students? See, Sherry, I told you I could just wax philosophic for a few minutes if you needed to. But
Well, it's an important topic, you know, and one that we're going to continue to struggle with for a long time, I think. I personally am so grateful to Karen and Eugene and to all the other teachers who take time to stop and listen and care about individual students who are struggling, try to help them find their resilience, find their purpose. And I think we need to think more as a group, you know, as a society, how we can do that in a more global kind of way, so that everybody, if you create an environment in which everyone can thrive, so that hopefully we intervene before a student really gets into trouble, really starts to struggle badly. We're not there yet.
well, we're getting to the end of our panel time right now, but I just want to thank you all for your time and for your thoughts and conversations in the chat, and to Karen and Eugene for their really great presentations and sharing their ideas. And yeah, I'm feeling inspired to go connect with some students. So maybe I'll go do that before happy hour.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Eugene. I really appreciate what you've shared with us here today. It certainly has given me a lot to think about.